guys, how are you today? I just want to remind you, listen carefully and focus on our lesson so that you have something to learn, alright? Last time we talked about crocheting, the tools and materials needed in crocheting. Now we will continue our lesson. What we are going to study today is about the different kinds of crochet stitches. Ayan. But before we move on to our lesson, we will have a short review about crocheting. What is crocheting, guys? Crocheting is a centuries-old craft that takes its name from the French word croq, which means hook. Alright? Hooks can be made from a variety of materials, such as metal, wood, bamboo, or plastic. Alright? It's a fun and relaxing hobby, and at the same time, it is easy to learn. Madali lang siyang matutunan. Crochet is a process of creating textiles by using a crochet hook to interlock loops of yarn, thread, or strands of other materials. Ayan. Before we go into the basic stitches, we will mention the foundation chain. The foundation chain is the key term in crocheting. Alright? Just like a house needs a solid foundation, crocheting needs a foundation as well. The foundation chain is defined as a cross-stitch row that serves as the base of your crocheting. It holds all your stitches and all the succeeding rows that you will make. Ayan. Once you have learned the different kinds of stitches, it is easy for you to make different kinds of crochet product. Ayan, pag-aaralan natin dito yung iba't ibang klase ng paggawa ng basic stitches. Ayan. The first one is chain stitch, and the abbreviation of chain stitch is CH. Alright? The base chain is a series of chain stitches which normally begin with a loop secured by a slip knot. Alright? In order for us to make a chain, the first thing that we need to do is to make a slip knot. Alright? I will show you the process on how to make chain. Alright?
Hi everyone, it's Jennifer from Fiberflux. In this video, I will show you how to crochet a chain. For this tutorial, I'm going to use some worsted weight acrylic yarn and a 5.5mm eye hook. Chains are pretty much the beginning of most crochet patterns you'll see, and they're really easy to make. And to begin, we'll put a slip knot on our hook, just like that. And to make the chain, you're going to wrap the yarn around the hook and pull it through the loop, just like that. Wrap yarn around hook, pull it through the loop. Yarn around hook, pull it through the loop. And if you're just starting off with crochet, you'll want to do this again and again to get the hang of it. When I first started learning how to crochet, I made lots of chains. And then when you go to work the first row of whatever you're making, just note that this loop here on your hook does not count as a chain. So let's go ahead and fasten our chain off. You can just wrap the yarn around the hook and pull it through the loop like that to fasten off. And we'll look at our chain a little more closely. Each one of these little V's here is a chain, and I recently learned that it's called a chain because if you flip it over, it looks like chain link, excuse me, like a chain length fence. So there you have your chain. And thank you so much for watching, and be sure and click the red.
Next, slip stitch. The abbreviation of slip stitch is SLST. Ayan. Slip stitch is the shortest of all crochet stitches. Slip stitches are usually used to move yarn across a group of stitches without adding height, alright? Or they may be used to join work when working in rounds. Ayan. I will show you the process on how to make a slip stitch, alright?
A few moments later.
Technique more than it's considered to be a stitch. And the reason for this is because the slip stitch has several uses. And in this lesson, I'm going to show you the two most common uses the slip stitch is used for. And the number one reason is to move across stitches without adding any height. And number two is to form a ring or circle when working in the round. In this demonstration, I am starting out with 15 double crochets in my first row. Now moving on to the second row, when using the slip stitch, you first want to chain one and then turn your work. Now the chain one does not count as your first stitch, so insert your hook into the first stitch. Now first you want to do is insert your hook into that first stitch, yarn over your hook, pull through the first stitch, and then also pull through the loop that's left on your hook. And now the first slip stitch has been made. So I'm going to go ahead and show you this one more time. Go ahead and insert your hook into the second stitch, yarn over your hook, and pull through both the stitch and the loop that's on your hook. And the second slip stitch has been made. So I'm going to go ahead and show you again a few more times. So as you can see, when I am crocheting these slip stitches, it doesn't even look like any stitches have been placed. So this can be a really useful stitch when you want to move across the stitches without creating any height. Now in the second demonstration, I am going to show you how to crochet a ring or a circle by using the slip stitch. Now the first thing I'm going to do is chain 5. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now after you chain 5, insert your hook into the last chain from your hook. Now yarn over your hook and pull through both the chain and the loop that's on your hook. And this is how you use the slip stitch to form a circle.
Next, double crochet. The abbreviation of double crochet is DC. Ayan. Double crochet is one of the most common crochet stitches. It is a taller stitch than single crochet. Remember, you will never work in the first chain from the crochet hook unless the crochet pattern you are working specifically directs you to do so. Ang ibig niya sabihin, hindi ka makakagawa ng double crochet without following the procedure. Hindi ka makakagawa ng crochet product kung hindi mo sinusundan yung pattern na gagawin mo. Kaya kung mapapansin nyo dito sa larawan, no, meron siyang step-by-step procedure na kailangan sundan para magawa nyo ng tama at maayos yung project na gagawin nyo. Alright? I will show you the process on how to make a double crochet. Alright?
Okay, a real quick tip about the double crochet is that it's 2 times longer than the single crochet, and you will start to understand what this means later on when I demonstrate it for you. Also, when teaching you the double crochet, I'm only going to show you the first 2 rows because that's really all you need to know in order to grasp the concept of the double crochet. Okay, so let's get started. I want you to start out with a slip knot and go ahead and chain 20. Now you should already know how to tie a slip knot and to chain, but if you can't remember or if you don't know how, go back and watch lesson number 4 and 5 to learn how. Okay, so the first thing you need to remember is that you always want to place your first double crochet in the 4th chain from your hook. And the reason for that is that your first stitch will measure up with the turning chain, but don't worry if you don't understand what that means right now. Okay, so go ahead and count to the 4th chain. And when you're ready, wrap the yarn around your hook. Now remember, this is also called yarn over. So when you yarn over, sweep the yarn from back to front. After you yarn over, place the hook into the 4th chain. Now yarn over again. Okay, pull the hook through the chain and you will now have 3 loops on your hook. Now yarn over your hook again, and this time you'll want to pull through the first 2 loops on your hook. So now you'll have 2 loops on your hook. So go ahead and yarn over again and pull through the last 2 loops on your hook. And you just made your first double crochet. Okay, so let's place our second double crochet in the next chain. So yarn over, go ahead and push through the chain. Yarn over again and pull through the chain. There should be 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over again, pull through the first 2 loops on your hook. And now there should be only 2 loops left on your hook. Yarn over again and pull through the last 2 loops on your hook. And there's your second double crochet. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do this a few more times. Okay, so just continue to double crochet down your chain, and I will meet you back here and show you how to do your second row of double crochets. Okay, so this is what your first row of double crochets should look like. And now what I'm going to do is chain 3 to continue on to my second row. So always chain 3 when you're double crocheting to get to the next row. Now after you chain 3, you want to turn your work around. Okay, so I want to take a few minutes and help you understand that you are chaining 3 because you want to meet the height of the next double crochet row. Also remember that the chain 3 counts as your first double crochet. So that means that when you go to place your next double crochet on the second row, you want to skip the first stitch that is connected to the turning chain. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and show you where to place that second double crochet. So this is the stitch you want to place it into right here. Okay, so when you're ready, go ahead and wrap the yarn over the hook and push the hook through that second double crochet stitch. Now remember, when you actually push the hook through the stitch contains 2 strands of yarn. So it almost looks like there's 4 strands of yarn on your hook right now. But that's just because that stitch contains 2 strands of yarn. Okay, so when you're ready, wrap the yarn over your hook, pull through that first stitch. There are now 3 loops on your hook. Wrap the yarn over again, pull through the first 2 loops on your hook, wrap the yarn over again, and pull through the last 2 loops on your hook. And there's your first double crochet on your second row. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and show you 2 more times how to double crochet on your second row. Now when you're all through, you might think you're finished, but remember you have that last turning chain that you still need to double crochet into. So I'm going to go ahead and double crochet into that last turning chain. And the only reason I'm showing you this is because it can be confusing if you're unsure about that. So go ahead and crochet into the last turning chain, and this is what it should look like when you're all through.
Treble. Alright, the abbreviation of treble is TR. Okay. The treble crochet is a tall stitch that works up quickly and a little bit taller than the double crochet. Ayan. Like what I've said before, no? You will never work in the first chain from the crochet hook unless the crochet pattern you are working specifically directs you to do so. Hindi mo magagawa yung ginagawa mo without following the pattern. Kaya kung makikita nyo dito sa larawan, meron siyang step-by-step procedure din na kailangan mong sundan para magawa mo siya na maayos at tama. Alright? Ipapakita ko sa inyo yung proseso kung paano siya gawin. Okay?
A few moments later.
So today I'm using Bernat Super Value as my yarn and a 5mm crochet hook, and I've already chained 8 stitches to start with. To work my first treble crochet, I want to work in the 5th chain from the hook, and your pattern will tell you that. So we want to count our chains from our hook. So remember, this one that's on your hook does not count. That's considered your working loop. So we're going to count our chains, and it's very helpful if you have it so that your chains are kind of creating this V shape here. If that's what's facing you, it'll make your life a lot easier. So we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is the stitch I'm actually going to work into right here. So to start our treble crochet, we want to wrap the yarn around our hook twice before we go into the stitch. So we want to once, twice. So we have 2 yarn over hooks, and then we're going to go into our stitch. Now when you're working into the chain, you want to go through that 1 loop right there. So we have 1 bar or loop across our hook. We want to wrap our yarn around our hook and draw up a loop. We now have 4 loops on our hook. Now the next step is repeated 3 times. So basically what you want to do is wrap our yarn around our hook and pull through 2 stitches. That's once. Wrap our yarn around our hook and pull through 2 stitches. That's twice. Wrap our yarn around our hook and pull through 2 stitches, and that's our 3rd time. So there's your first treble crochet. So now we want to work our next treble crochet. This is the stitch we just worked into, so we want to move over and work into the next stitch right here. So remember, wrap our yarn around twice before we go into our stitch. So once, twice. Now we're going to go into our stitch, wrap our yarn around our hook, and draw up a loop. We now have 4 loops on our hook. And this is the step that we'll repeat 3 times. Yarn over hook and pull through 2 loops. Yarn over hook and pull through 2 loops. Yarn over hook and pull through 2 loops. So that's our next treble crochet. So we're going to work our next one where that's a stitch we've just worked into, so we're going to work into this one right here. So to start, wrap our yarn around twice. Once, twice. Then we're going to go into our stitch, wrap our yarn around our hook, and pull up a loop. We now have 4 loops on our hook. So this is the step we repeat over and over. We want to wrap our yarn around our hook, pull through 2 loops, wrap our yarn around our hook, pull through 2 loops, wrap our yarn around our hook, and pull through 2 loops. And that's your next treble. So I'm going to work my last treble crochet into this last chain right here. So I'm going to wrap around twice. I'm going to insert it into my stitch, wrap it around, and pull up a loop. 4 loops on my hook, wrap it around, pull through 2, yarn over hook, pull through 2, yarn over hook, pull through 2. So there we are. That's our first row of treble crochets, and you're going to see that we've made 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and this skip chain that we did right at the very beginning, because remember we worked into the 5th chain from the hook. In most patterns this is actually going to count as a stitch, and you're just going to work this chain right here as a regular stitch. So how do we work our next row? Basically we turn our work, And the first thing that we want to do, our pattern will tell us, is to chain 4. So to chain, you put your yarn around your hook and you draw up a loop. That's 1 chain, 2 chains, 3, 4. Now, you'll have to look at your pattern and it will tell you whether this chain 4 counts as a stitch or not. Most often it does. So that's what I'm going to do with my stitch. But if it doesn't count, you will actually work into this first stitch, because you have to think about it like this. If this counts as a stitch, that means it counts as this first stitch right here, and then you'd go and work over here. If it didn't count as a stitch, which your pattern would say does not count as a stitch, you're actually going to work into this first one. I'm going to treat it, because the most often this is counted as a stitch, I'm going to treat it that way, and I'm going to work into this one right here. So we're going to form our stitch just like we did when we were working into the foundation row. We're going to wrap our yarn once, twice around the hook, and remember I'm skipping that first one because this counts, and I'm going to go into the second one right here. Now when you go into this, you'll see that this is actually 2 bars that you go through, the front and the back loop of the stitch. And you're going to treat that as one when you go through. So we want to wrap our yarn around our hook and pull it through. So that's what I meant when I said we treat it as one, we go through both of those loops. So now we have 4 loops on our hook, and we want to do the yarn over hook and pull through 2 loops 3 times. So yarn over hook, pull through 2 loops, yarn over hook, pull through 2 loops, yarn over hook, and pull through 2 loops. So now when I want to work my next stitch, I'm going to work into this one because we've worked that one. Now I'm going to work right here. So I'm going to wrap around once, twice, insert it into my stitch, yarn over hook, and pull up a loop, yarn over hook and pull through 2, yarn over hook and pull through 2, yarn over hook and pull through 2. And that's all there is to making treble crochets. So this is a basic swatch of what treble crochets look like if I just continued along with what I was doing, which is every row treble crochet, turning it each time. What you can see is when you look at it and you flip it over, it looks virtually the same on both sides. So that's all there is to it, and we'll see you again at
Next, half treble. The abbreviation of half treble is HTR. Ayan. The half treble crochet stitch is a fantastic little stitch that is often overlooked. Alright, it creates a fabric that's not really tight or solid as a double crochet stitch, and not really loose and airy as a treble stitch. Alright, it can be used in making projects such as bags and accessories. Alright, I will show you the process on how to make half treble crochet stitch. Alright,
so we're going to begin by making 2 chains at the end of the row. So we're going to wrap the yarn around the hook and pull through. To make a chain, you don't insert into anything, you just yarn over the hook and pull through the hook. So we've made 2 chains here, and then we're going to turn our work towards us like we're reading a book. So you just pass that towards you, and we're going to work back across the top of the line of stitches that we've made already. So we're going to build on ourselves and work back across this row. This is how crochet builds on itself. You go back and forth across the row, growing as you go. So for the half treble stitch, UK half treble, we're going to begin by wrapping our yarn around the hook before we insert it into the stitch. So we're going to go around the hook, and then we're looking for the second stitch in the row. So that's the first one, That's the second stitch, that's the one you're looking for. And this time we're going to insert our hook underneath both legs of the V of that stitch. See that clearly? So you're sort of inserting from the side and getting under both legs of the V of that stitch. You're then going to yarn around the hook and pull back through just the stitch. So you've got 3 loops on the hook. And then you're going to yarn over again and pull through all 3 of those loops. Okay, let's do that again. Yarn around the hook first, insert into the stitch, make sure you get under both legs of the V, yarn around the hook and pull back through the stitch, so you've got 3 on the hook, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on the hook. Again, yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull back through the stitch, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. I'm going to carry on making the half treble across the row. Again, this is the UK half treble, would be equivalent to the US half double. This stitch is a little taller than the double crochet. It works well for clothing. It has enough drape that it is attractive looking, but still dense enough that you can't see through it. Crochet fabric in general is a little bit thicker than knitted fabric, so if you're already a knitter, you'll find that your crochet work is a little bit thicker, and also you're going to go through yarn a lot faster, but it also grows a lot faster than knitting. So I'm to the last stitch, see the last V there, and I'm going to do my last half treble into that stitch, and that's a row of half trebles. So that row begins there and is that tall, so you can see the difference between the double crochet and the half treble crochet.
Next, double treble. The abbreviation of double treble is DTR. Ayan. The double treble crochet stitch is an elongated post stitch using the same principle as the double crochet. Double treble uses 3 yarn overs before entering the fabric instead of 1. Okay, it can be useful in making embellishments. Alright, I will show you the process on how to make double treble. Alright.
A few moments later.
In this video, I will show you how to crochet the double treble crochet stitch. This is abbreviated in patterns as DTR. So when you come across that in a pattern, you'll know what to do. So this is also a stitch commonly referred to as a double triple crochet stitch as well. As you can see, it's a very tall stitch, and the fabric that it produces has almost a kind of ladder-like quality. It's very, very open. The posts that it creates are very, very tall with large spaces in between. To make our little sampler swatch, I'm just going to use a J crochet hook, a 6mm J crochet hook, and some worsted weight yarn. We're going to begin our little swatch by putting a slip knot on our hook. Wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop. Bring the yarn behind the loop, reach in with your crochet hook, bring up that loop, and tighten, okay? We're going to just make a few chains to make our swatch. To make a chain, wrap the yarn around your hook and bring it through the loop. I'm going to make about 12 or so. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, okay? So when you're working the double treble crochet stitch, we're going to begin the stitch in the 6th chain from the hook. When you make this, when you work into the chain like that, you're giving your swatch the height that it needs, okay? So this loop here does not count. So we're going to count 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So in this chain right here is where we'll be working our stitch, okay? To make the double treble crochet, you have to wrap yarn around hook 3 times to make the stitch, okay? So 1, 2, and 3. Next, insert your hook into the chain, wrap the yarn around the hook and bring up a loop. You now have 5 loops on your hook. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the next 2 loops, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the next 2 loops, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the last 2 loops. As you can see, our stitch is very, very tall, and it's very open as well. So let's do that again. Wrap yarn around hook 1, 2, 3 times. Insert the hook into the next chain. Wrap the yarn around the hook, bring up a loop. 5 loops are on your hook. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the next 2 loops. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the next 2 loops. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the last 2 loops. We now have several very tall stitches. Something else that's important to know with any stitch you learn is how to transition from row to row. So if you'd like to do another row of the double treble crochet stitch, simply chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and turn. Then in the next stitch, this will count as one of your stitches. So go into that next stitch and do the same thing. Wrap yarn around hook 1, 2, 3 times, insert the hook into the stitch, bring up a loop. Yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops. Yarn around hook, bring it through the next 2 loops. Yarn around hook, bring it through the next 2 loops. Yarn around hook, bring it through the last 2 loops. And that is how you transition from row to row. So that is how you work the double treble crochet stitch. Thanks so much.
Next, triple treble. The abbreviation of triple treble is TTR. Ayan. The triple treble crochet stitch is taller than a treble crochet and is made by working 3 yarn overs at the first of the stitch instead of 2 yarn overs as for treble crochet. Ayan, I will show you the process on how to make a triple treble. Alright?
Olivia from Hopeful Honey here. Today we're learning how to crochet the UK triple treble crochet. Before you begin, you'll need to crochet a foundation chain to your desired length plus 4 extra chains. So to begin, skip 5 chains. This counts as your first triple treble crochet of row 1 and crochet 1 triple treble crochet in the 6th chain from your hook. So to begin, yarn over 3 times. Then insert your hook in that 6th chain. Yarn over and pull back through. You should have 5 loops on your crochet hook. Yarn over and pull through those first 2 loops. 4 loops left on your crochet hook. Yarn over and pull through the next 2 loops. 3 loops left. Yarn over, pull through those next 2 loops. 2 loops left on your hook. Yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops. There you go, your first triple treble crochet. Let's try another one in that next chain stitch. So remember, yarn over 3 times, then insert your hook in that next chain stitch, yarn over and pull back through that chain stitch. You should have 5 loops on your crochet hook. Yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops, 4 loops left, yarn over, pull through the next 2 loops, 3 loops left. Yarn over, pull through another 2 loops, 2 loops left on your hook, yarn over and pull through those last 2 loops. So you'll want to continue crocheting 1 triple treble crochet in every chain all the way across till you reach the end of row 1. Once you reach the end of row 1, chain 4. So yarn over and pull through that loop on your hook. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Then turn your work so you're crocheting in the opposite direction. So the chain 4 counts as the first triple treble crochet of this row. Now crochet your next triple treble crochet in the following stitch. So remember, yarn over 3 times, so 1, 2, 3, then insert your hook in that next stitch, yarn over and pull back through, 5 loops on your crochet hook, yarn over, pull through 2, 4 loops left on your hook, yarn over, pull through those next 2 loops on your hook, 3 loops left, yarn over and pull through the next 2 loops, only 2 loops left on your hook, yarn over and pull through those last 2 loops. Let's try crocheting a triple treble crochet once more, shall we? This time with a close-up. So remember, you want to yarn over 3 times. So 1, 2, 3. Then insert your hook in that next stitch. Yarn over and pull back through. 5 loops on your crochet hook. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops. 4 loops left on your crochet hook. Yarn over and pull through the next 2 loops. 3 loops left on your crochet hook. Yarn over, pull through the next 2 loops. 2 loops remaining on your hook. Yarn over and pull through those last 2 loops. There you go, it just takes a tiny bit of practice. So continue crocheting 1 triple treble crochet in every stitch all the way across till you reach the end of row 2. Once you reach the end of row 2, continue repeating row 2 until you reach your desired length. The triple treble crochet is another basic crochet stitch that works up quickly into a loose, airy fabric. This stitch is the next step up in height from the double treble crochet, whilst remaining equally as versatile as its lightweight design is commonly used in combination with other stitches when crocheting those lacy shawls and dainty boho vests we all know and love. Be sure to check.
And last one, quadruple treble. The abbreviation of quadruple treble is QTR. Ayan. The quadruple treble crochet stitch is the longest stitch of the basic crochet stitches, and it's not used all that often. Why? Because it's a very open stitch, leaving large gaps between each stitch because of its length. Ayan, kung makikita nyo, meron siyang allowance or konting allowance or mahaba siya. Ayan. It can be used in making projects such as placemat. Alright? I will show you the process on how to make quadruple treble. Alright?
A few moments later.
This is what a UK quadruple treble crochet stitch looks like, and if you know how to do a treble crochet stitch, then this is just an extension of that stitch. So you can make a placemat out of this stitch. That'd be quite nice. So to start off with, make a chain, a foundation chain of any amount of chains. I've just got 16 chain stitches here, and to start off with, wrap the yarn around the hook 4 times, and then we'll be inserting our hook into the 7th chain from the stitch from the hook. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wrap the yarn over the hook and draw it through that chain stitch. Wrap the yarn over the hook, draw it through 2 loops. Wrap the yarn over the hook, draw through 2 loops, and again, and again, and again, and that gives you a quadruple treble crochet there. And this chain here, that'll be the turning chain, and that counts as a stitch. When you're coming back on the next row, you will crochet a stitch into the top of that chain there. So to do the next one, 1, 2, 3, 4, and going into the next stitch, draw through 2, through 2, through 2, through 2, and through 2, And there's your next stitch. And you continue to do that along your row. So 1, 2, 3, 4 into the next stitch. There you go. And continue to do that right along here, and finishing off into the last stitch, last chain stitch there. So I've finished the first row of the quadruple treble stitch, and to move on to the next row, you turn your work and we're going to be doing 6 chain stitches for the turning chain. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and to move on to the next, into the next stitch, you can either go into the top of the second stitch here, or you can go into the space in here. So wrap the yarn over the hook 4 times, and as I said, you can either go in there, but I think it looks much nicer if you go into the space there. And there's your quadruple treble on the second row. So it gives it more finished look by going into the space rather than into there. So to do the next stitch, 1, 2, 3, 4 into the next space. And there's your next quadruple treble. So continue that right across into each of these spaces, and then I'll show you how to do your last stitch into this turning chain. So I'm up to doing the last stitch on the second row, and you can either do your last stitch into this chain of the turning chain, the top chain here, or I like to do it straight into this space here. So wrap the yarn over the hook 4 times and go into the space, and there's the last stitch there. To continue on with your work, just repeat row 2 of what I've just shown you.
And the last part of our lesson, the abbreviations used in crocheting. Why is it important? Gaano nga ba kahalaga to pagdating sa crocheting? Okay, aalamin natin. Alright? The first one is alt, meaning alternate. Alright? The second one, approx, meaning to say approximately. Okay? Susunod, cm. cm stands for centimeter. Ayan. Next, ch, meaning chain. Ayan, no? Next, beg or beg, meaning beginning or begin. Ayan. Next, con or con, meaning to say continue. Alright? Next, DC, meaning to say double crochet. Ayan. Next, DEC or dec, meaning to say decrease or decreasing. Ayan. Next, DTR, meaning to say double treble. Ayan. Next, fall or FOLL, meaning to say following. Ayan, no? Next, HTR, meaning to say half treble. Alright? Next, INC, meaning to say increase or increasing. Ayan. Next, LP, meaning to say loop or loops. Ayan. Next, PAT or PATT, meaning to say pattern or patterns. Ayan. Next, rep or REP, meaning repeat. Alright? SL, meaning to say sleep. Alright? Next, SLST, meaning to say sleep stitch. Alright? Next, SP, meaning space. Alright? Or spaces. Ayan. ST, meaning to say stitch or stitches. Ayan. Next, tug or TOG, together. Ayan. TR, meaning to say treble. Ayan. And last one, TTR, triple treble. Alright? There are other abbreviations you will use. But as a beginner in crochet, these are the most basic abbreviations you will need to memorize. Why? In order for you to recognize them. Okay? Para madali nyo siyang maalala kung anong klase bang crochet stitch yun. Alright? That's all for today, guys. Thank you for listening and I hope you learned a lot. Umaasa ako na marami kayong natutunan ngayon. At umaasa din ako, yung mga napag-aralan natin ngayon, may i-apply nyo siya kapag gumawa na kayo ng sarili nyong crochet stitches. Alright? Thank you for listening, guys. And good day. God bless you all.